Jennifer, I am beyond thrilled to have you today. Thank you so much for being with me.
It is an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
This is fun. Okay, so you're a farm girl. So we need to get some things out of the way. So I wasn't raised on a farm, like my parents didn't live on a farm, but my mom grew up on a farm. So I grew up just always loving my grandparents' house, just like that environment of just enjoying being outdoors and just being able to take a long walk till I could like barely see their house anymore. Those types of memories are just really special to me. So as I was scanning Growing Slow, which we can't wait to talk about today, just the imagery and the way that you wrote the book was just really special to my heart because I'm a Tennessee farm raised girl, I guess you could say. And so that's where I spent a lot of my childhood and early adult years. And so we're just kindred spirits. I'm just excited to have you today and to have this talk.
Oh, that's great. Love being on with a fellow farmer.
I know. It's going to be fun. So I always love hearing kind of like the backstory to the book. I think those are so fun. So I want to hear, what was the path that led to Growing Slow? That's the new message that we're going to be chatting about today for listeners. It will be out in the world by the time this releases. But Jennifer, I want to hear kind of the path to this message for you.
Yeah, there's a couple different ways I could answer that. I think that I'll first describe my personality type. I am not a grow slow girl naturally. A book that would have been easier for me to write is one called Growing Fast. I'm an Enneagram 3. I love doing a lot of things. I'm a high capacity person. I'm really energized by work, and that actually has not changed. But what was happening to me is that as I started to look back on my life thus far, I felt like so much of it had become a blur and that I wasn't fully present in moments that were most important to me. And also the reality was I was suffering from an actual real trauma to my body and my spirit. It's called hurry sickness. And hurry sickness is when it doesn't really have so much to do with what's on your calendar. It has to do with what's hanging around your heart. And hurry was hanging around my heart. I was anxious from the moment I woke up. I would feel like I'm falling behind in everything. And not just the things on my calendar or my to-do list, but just that I'm falling behind as a person. This idea that I should be further along by now as a mom, as a wife, in ministry, in my career, whatever it was, that somehow I should be further along. And it created a sense of urgency to everything that I did and a dissatisfaction and discontentment with so much of my life. And it took a toll. Again, it took a toll physically. I had a lot of gut issues, headaches, poor sleep habits, poor eating habits, poor exercise habits, and really needed something to change because hustle just wasn't working for me anymore. And it was scary to do, Rebecca, because I want to be productive and I want to be used by God and I want to do all the things that He's called me to do. And so it felt like this huge risk, like I am going to lose my edge if I grow slow. But here's the surprising thing that happened. I didn't lose my edge at all. I am actually weirdly more productive now because I'm slowed down. I'm actually finding more satisfaction in my work because I'm not working as much. And I'm probably getting more done than I would if I kept the pace that I was going. And I just feel a lot better. Yeah. And life is just a lot more fun this way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, we have more in common than I thought. I'm an achiever as well. And so it is so easy for me to listen to the hustle mentality because it feels so much like my flesh. And so I was sort of coming into adulthood, into corporate America, when this mentality sort of hit its peak, if you will, 5 to 7 years ago. And it sounded so good to me. I mean, it sounded so like the part of me that is not yet sanctified. And so I can think of times in my life where I have burned the candle at both ends and I have done all of the things. And we are for self-discipline and hard work and all of those things around here. We are so also for Sabbath and rest and intentionality and all the things that we're going to talk about today. And I don't know, the more life I experience, the more I appreciate and and crave messages like this that point us back to the fact that we don't have to do it all, and that slowing down sometimes is better. And I even find, when I work less, sometimes we get more done just simply by putting a parameter around our time. And so all those things are so helpful. One of the things that, as I was scanning the book, I saw and I loved was this idea of giving ourselves permission to be unspectacular. And as a 3, knowing that you are bent towards that achiever mentality, I just want you to talk about, like, why is that so hard for us?
Well, it's hard because the entirety of culture around us is built around the idea of go big or go home, make a name for yourself, be spectacular, because the opposite of spectacular is maybe ordinary, mundane, unspectacular, obviously, all of these adjectives that don't sound very appealing. We have been given permission to be spectacular ever since we've gotten into high school and college age. And this was really a permission slip. Writing Growing Slow was as if I was writing a permission slip to be unspectacular, to see life's most meaningful moments unfolding in the unspectacular. And some of that can only be seen in reverse and in hindsight. And so it's difficult to believe that's true until you slow down and look back on your life. So for instance, I'm a mom of 2 girls and they're in their teens now. And the growing up years are quite unspectacular, particularly when they're little and life is consumed by, like urban sprawl of Lego cities across the living room floor and applesauce scooped onto plastic plates and, just the same books read and reread over and over, the most unspectacular kind of days that you could imagine. But now we see the fruit of all of those unspectacular moments, and it can only be seen in reverse. And I think a really good practice for all of us is to take time to remember, reflect, and return, which is the mindset that's sort of outlined in the book, where we take time to pause and think back on those moments, those seemingly unspectacular moments, and remembering that those were the mattering things. Quite often the mattering things.
Yeah, that's so good. And, one of the things that we've talked about a little bit in being a high capacity person, I just wonder, are there tendencies that you have seen in yourself as you've walked this path that are maybe markers for you now, where you maybe go down the hustle path and then you realize, wait a minute, I'm not growing slow and I need to slow down? What are those things that you notice in your life, and how do you combat that? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, there are little things that you could easily overlook because you're just so used to feeling that way. There are little things like the way that your body and mind feel when it's as if you have 15 tabs open. And it's the way that you start to multitask because you think that's the way to move forward. And then you look back on your work and see that there were mistakes made because you couldn't unitask on one thing at a time. It's the way that when it's lunch or supper time, you eat standing up and you can't even really taste the food because your mind is already racing on to the next thing. It's the way you're with a friend or a loved one, a child, a spouse, and you aren't even really engaging in eye contact because you are thinking about something that needs to happen somewhere else. It's the way that you sit down for a family movie night, but at the same time, you still got to be scrolling on your phone to do something else. And it creates a sort of rushed, multitasked existence that never really has us present in any given moment. And I think all of those are warning signs. I think all of those are an indication that it's time to singularly focus on the person or the task before us and to validate the good things that are already growing in our lives instead of always thinking next level or what am I missing out on?
Yeah, that's really good. My husband and I are going to the beach in a couple of weeks to celebrate our anniversary. And
Perfect.
so we got married almost 2 years ago. And my husband's a pastor. I'm in this whole podcasting, writing world. We're both working on books right now. So there's just like a lot of balls in the air, right? And COVID happened. He's leading our church through a pandemic. There's just a lot going on right now. And we just got to a point where I finally just said, I think we just need to like shut everything down for like 3 days. I just need a reset, you know? And it's been a good while since I have not checked the news, since I have checked out of social media for several days. And that's just really been on my heart lately, and something I know that we need in our marriage and we need just in this season. And so anyway, that's one of the reasons why I was excited to take this book with me, because I know how badly I need it right now. Because all of those behaviors that you're describing, I'm to the point where I'm seeing a lot of that in me. Right. And so sometimes when that happens to me, I have to go like cold turkey for a minute to kind of get myself back to a healthy rhythm. So anyway, we're really excited about that. We're on the countdown, 2 weeks. So
that's awesome. It sounds like a hustle detox. I like it.
Yeah. Ooh, I like that. Hustle detox. That's fun. That's good. So something else that you talk about in the book is this idea of letting go of expectations. And I think this is really important because, goodness, is there not so much of our lives that comes back to expectations, right? Whether it's in our work or in the way that we communicate or in our marriages, whatever that is. But the last year of our lives, if it's taught us nothing, it has taught us this idea of many times we have unmet expectations in life. How do we do that? How do we let go of our expectations and manage this better in our lives?
I think that we think of expectations as the thing that is going to keep it all moving forward and to keep us happy. And we think that an unexpected life is synonymous with chaos. But the truth is, all of life is unexpected. I live in the last place that I thought I would ever live. And in this place that I didn't ever want to come to is the place where, in fact, God has used me to grow closer to him. And that is why I think that, I'm a planning kind of personality. It's just how I'm made. And so I've learned over the last decade to make plans, because that's good. It's good to have something to aim for and shoot for, but to always hold them loosely, because God can't put anything into closed fists. If I have my hands so tightly wrapped around my plans and my expectations and my preferences, I'm going to miss real gifts along the way. And you mentioned the last year, all of our expectations and plans were blown to smithereens. Our calendars were whited out, and we were suddenly given this opportunity to see our world and ourselves in a way that was previously inconceivable. Like, what would it look like if the world shut down and I didn't have to do all these things? It wasn't just an idea or a hypothetical. It was real. And there were obviously a lot of very hard things about living through that. But I think that we would do well to go back and see where the gifts of an unexpected life were. Think back to the first 2 weeks of lockdown, as hard as they were. Think back to the things that changed for you. I think that all of us have those things. For our family, it was daily walks. It was looking forward to 6 o'clock every night because we were going to have some fun, new, adventurous meal. And we were going to use the fine china, and we were going to light the candles and put on music and make the most of it and be truly connected to one another and then to the people in our quote bubble. And I know too that in those first 2 weeks to a month, I was more creative than I ever had been in my entire life in how to bless and love my neighbor well. People who had birthdays that couldn't have their parties, people who had weddings that couldn't have their celebrations. I had a daughter who was graduating from high school, thinking, how do we creatively celebrate this milestone? Like, I want to be that committed now as the world begins to open up. How can I bless the people I love and think creatively and not take these people and occasions for granted, but really press in and be generous with my thought life and my hands and my heart to love others well? And so those were the gifts of unexpectation in the last year. And I think that we will do our future selves a favor by taking that into the 2021 and 22 and on with our lives.
Yeah, I think the same. I mean, as hard as the last year has been, it has been such a light that has shined on what we idolize and what we hold dear and the expectations that we have about our schedules and our, I mean, just all of it. And I even remember a few weeks into quarantine, you know, my husband was working from here and the whole world was shut down. And I just remember looking at him and saying, I don't think I have spent this much time with you in our entire marriage. I mean, when we got married, so we dated long distance. I lived up in Tennessee before I moved down here. We got married. We'd known each other for 7 or 8 years, but dated long distance, got married. I moved 9 hours from everything I knew. We went on a honeymoon, spent lots of time together in Savannah, Georgia. And then we got back down to Mississippi and it was like boots on the ground. And months later, COVID hit. And so it was just so interesting when you started realizing those things that quarantine actually afforded us, even though it was so hard. And so there are days where I look back on those days so fondly because even since I haven't spent that much time with my husband. So it was just really sweet. So I love that you bring that out. We learned a lot in the last year. And so that's so good. Okay. Other piece that I think is so important to this message that I think is also hard for a girl like you and a girl like me is this idea of when our dreams die. And to somebody who is listening today and they feel this very deeply based off their life experience of the last year, how do we move past that? How do we have a better perspective of what God is doing in the midst of all this when we feel that, you know, quote, our dreams have died?
Right. So, you know, when I wrote Growing Slow, there is the idea that growth is happening. It's just going to happen more slowly than you think. But the reality is sometimes we get to those harvest times in our life and realize that not only did something not grow very quickly, sometimes it didn't grow at all. Sometimes we get to a harvest and the field is fallow. And I really felt strongly that that needed to be addressed because there are people listening right now who had dreams of a marriage that would work and it didn't. People who had dreams of becoming an author and had to give up on that. People who had dreams of working it out with this particular career in mind and that dream was shattered in some way or another. I don't know that there's really anything that, you know, we can't necessarily resurrect those dreams. What I think we need to do is grieve them in a better way than we do. I think in the book I talk about, you know, people know what to do when somebody dies in your life. They bring casseroles and send Hallmark cards and come to the funeral and all of those sorts of things and love you long term through this great loss. But when a dream dies, there is a real loss and real grief. And I don't mean to compare it to a person, but I think we could maybe have funerals for dreams that died, like to give ourselves the time and space to grieve and feel what needs to be felt, I think is really critically important. Yeah. Those losses are real, as intangible as they might seem. So I think that is critical, is giving yourself the space to grieve a loss so that you can dream once more. Yeah. And believe that it's possible, that something will come to pass.
Yeah. I had a friend that did this really well last week with me. She reached out. We Marco Polo a lot. And she's a fellow writer friend. We're represented by the same agent and we're both about to pitch our first books. And she Marco'd me and she said, you know, I haven't really shared this with anybody. And she said, this may be a bad metaphor, but it kind of feels like I'm pregnant, but I don't want to tell people yet. Like I'm not far enough along. My book's been pitched, but I'm not saying a lot about it because I don't know what's going to happen. And she said, I need you to be the person that I can feel safe to share the no's and the yeses with. And like, I think we both need that person. So can we be that for each other? And I just thought, man, that's so kind to like up front say, we don't know how this is going to turn out, but I need you and you need me. And so let's be each other's person. You know, I think we all have our own version of that probably right now. And I think if we were like her and maybe up front, we just said, hey, this is what I need out of friendship right now. Maybe we could grieve those things better. I don't know. I just was really challenged by her response. I was really grateful for her last week. for just extending that to me.
Very wise. I think that's very wise to have those people. Not everybody can handle prolonged loss in our lives.
Yeah.
And so no matter what it is that has died, if it's a person or a pet or a dream or an opportunity, we need those rare, safe people. And we need to be those people. I think we just all could do a better job just to enter into the spaces where others are hurting with broken things and dying things. Be the kind of person who stays and just sits with and listens.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. Okay. One of the things that we do around here that I love is give our patrons the opportunity to ask our guests questions, which is really fun. So we had a question turned in for you from our friend Janelle, and Janelle asks, she said, I feel I'm always trying to hurry up to do the next thing instead of truly slowing down and soaking up Jesus. If you were sitting with a woman who has been trying something new, even though her plate is already very full, how would you encourage her to focus on what matters most?
Yeah, so I'll try to answer that as succinctly as possible because it took me about 57,000 words to describe how that goes. But I think I'll tackle it from the perspective of a few tactical, practical things that you could do. And first of all, I think that the first thing we need to ask ourselves is, how is that life of hustle treating us? Yeah. Because I think people are like, oh, I don't have time and I can't afford to slow down. I've got too many things on my plate. But what if you can't afford not to? And so there's a few things that you can begin to do right now. And one of those things is actually get up 10 minutes earlier, set the alarm 10 minutes earlier, and welcome the day. And this honestly sets the tone for the day. And I don't mean, necessarily quiet time with God. I think it is quiet time with God, but it's really less structured than that. It's very much just being present with yourself and present with God in you and God around you, and just deciding this is the way it's going to go today. And I know that it won't just exactly go smoothly, but if you have your head and your body and your heart all moving in the right direction when your feet hit the floor, you're going to be a lot better off. Because what's happening right now for most people is when their feet hit the floor, their adrenaline and cortisol levels are immediately shooting up sky high. And so we're constantly in fight or flight mode, and our brains and our hearts could never settle down. So we need to set the day's baseline first. Yeah. It's just a little thing. I mean, just like try it for 2 weeks and see what it is. Like take a cold glass of water and sit on the front step. I don't care what it is, but just something to set the tone for the day. And, doing things like stop checking your phone at Target checkout lines, because what happens when you do that is if there is something urgent that happens, you're not really able to answer it from your phone in the next 2 minutes before you get out the door. And so hurry hangs around your heart and it stresses you out, and it creates added drama and angst in your life because you can't resolve it. And there is so much data and studies and research that shows that the most stressed out, rushed, hurried people are the ones that are on their phones the most. There's a direct correlation between the two. And we think that the phone is the way to get more done and be more productive and use that time in the waiting room at the doctor's office, or to use that time at the stoplight, even when you think you got to quick answer a text. But all that does is just create added stress and get those cortisol and adrenaline levels just shooting up higher and higher. So those are a couple little things. But honestly, to Janelle, I would just say this is a complete mindset shift. And it's not something that can be handled in a day or two. It takes work. It takes intention. It takes deciding that the life of hustle isn't what you want anymore, and that you want to overhaul and create a new way of going about your day. That's what I did. And again, I thought I was going to lose my edge. I thought that I wouldn't be able to get everything done that I needed to get done. But what I found instead, that even going slower, I have more margin now than I ever did before.
Man, you're stepping all over my toes. It's all the things that I do when I am in the checkout line and when I'm at a stop sign and all the things. So this hustle detox has got a lot of things for me to think about and implement into my life. So that's really good. I love that. Well, what we're going to do now is hop on over to our Patreon page and get to know you a little bit better with just our patrons, which is a lot of fun. And so for those of you who are listening and you are a subscribed patron, you can hop on over and listen to my extra conversation with Jennifer now. But for this part of the conversation, Jennifer, I just want to thank you so much for being with me.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.